Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today, my guest is Brian Sanders, who is the filmmaker behind the Food Lies documentary, host of the top 5 nutrition podcast, Peak Human, and an international speaker. He graduated from UCLA with a degree in mechanical engineering. He works as the health coach at Evolve Healthcare and co-founded the health education company, Sapien. He also works to spread the awareness of regenerative agriculture and increase access to well-raised animal products through his company, Nose to Tail. Welcome to the podcast, Brian. Hey,
Michael, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you've got a lot going on, it sounds like.
Yeah.
When did the documentary start? Was that early, or is that kind of, as you started doing some other things, you said there really needs to be this documentary made?
No, that was first. Everything else fell into place around that.
Okay.
My whole mission has always been just to get this film out, get the word out about proper human diets. And then, like I said, things just fell into place. Started working with Dr. Gary at Evolve. So we actually see patients and, treat people and get them healthy, get them off meds, reverse chronic disease. And then, the whole nose to tail thing too. It's, I just wanted to find something that I believed in, and I didn't want to just advertise other people's products, and everything just kind of fell into place because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the premise behind the documentary. You said food lies, but what do you mean food lies?
Well, yeah, really most things out there seem to be kind of lies when we're looking at just standard government advice. Right. And a lot of people don't know this. It's like food and health and nutrition are so complicated, right? It's like everyone has their own idea about it. It's all conflicting. One diet is supposed to be great, it's vegan, and one diet is supposed to be great, it's carnivore. They are completely diametrically opposed, yet people say they have good results on both. And that really confuses people. And to go to like the food lies part, it's like, it is sort of a grand statement, it's a little bit of like clickbait, if you will, but I do think they are lies because they're being perpetuated still. Like, we had this bad idea of nutrition and we didn't even have all the science back in the day, starting in the 50s. And we came up with these stupid ideas like eggs, like, oh, cholesterol, you can't eat eggs, it's going to kill you, it's going to clog your arteries. It's like eggs are nature's perfect food. It's a superfood. It's a real superfood. Or meat, saturated fat is bad for you. We had all these old ideas that have been actually proven out to not be true, yet people don't know that. We continue on with these big organizations and governments and all these things just pushing the same old message, even though there's huge studies. There's a huge 5-part study in the Annals of Internal Medicine completely exonerating red meat. They said and saturated fat, there's no evidence showing that meat or saturated fat are harmful to health. And no one knows about this. This happened in the last year.
And because I think, let's look at your website. If you go to foodlies.org, right at the top, you say, much of you've been told about nutrition is wrong. And you're showing a breakfast, which, a thing of orange juice and some Mussolini. And the caption is, this is not a healthy breakfast.
Oh yeah. Like a granola. Yeah. It's like granola and orange juice and a piece of toast. That's what's pitched. You still see these films or TV shows and it's like, oh, let's get breakfast, kids. And it's the cereal and the orange juice. This is a terrible breakfast. This is what I grew up on. Didn't serve me well. This type of diet is what I continued to eat. And throughout my 20s, just started getting more and more problems. Actually, to go back a little, why I started making the film is because I've lost both my parents to chronic diseases because they followed these guidelines, because they thought that eating a purely processed sugary granola and low-fat yogurt and toast with margarine and a cup of orange juice was a healthy breakfast. This is why I'm so into this and why I just quit my job and started making this film 4 years ago with no plan, no money, is because this is what's going on across the nation and across the world. People are buying into this just propaganda. I think at this point, I can call it propaganda. It's just food industry propaganda that these highly processed, sugary items filled with corn, wheat, and soy, subsidized government, ag products and just preservatives and everything under the sun, except for, healthy things. That's what's being pitched to us as a healthy diet. And that's what's causing so much of the problems. That's why I lost my parents. That's why, I was losing my health. I was turned 30 and I was just had all these problems, was, becoming overweight. And all I did was go against all the guidelines and it all reversed in a matter of, a year. I didn't have any of the ailments I used to have, and I lost 4 pant sizes. And
wow,
it's just crazy. It's just crazy that this information is not known yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, if you look at what you have up there too, is just orange juice. The whole thing about orange juice is they claim it has great vitamin C. And, my grandparents would have us have a glass every single morning. But what they don't tell you is that all these other vegetables and fruit, like peppers, have incredibly high levels of vitamin C, but it was the lobbying of the citrus industry because they had so many oranges and they were trying to sell their orange juice. So they got the government to say orange juice is good for you.
That's a perfect example. You can get vitamin C almost anywhere. You can get vitamin C from sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm.
You can get vitamin C. Yes. Go eat a strawberry. Eat the fruit in its whole form. Though I think the worst way to get vitamin C, the absolute worst way to get vitamin C is through orange juice, because it comes with, I don't know, like 10 teaspoons of sugar. If you do the math on how much sugar's in it, why would you want all that just to get a little vitamin C?
And isn't it also very acidic, so it can hurt your teeth?
It hurts people's stomachs too.
Yeah. So, all right, we've established that, they're lying to you about food, they're lying to you about nutrition, and kind of, let's say, where does the film take us? Not that you obviously give away all those spoilers and stuff, but what's kind of like, and I'm looking at too, at like the number of experts you have in this film is incredible.
Oh yeah. It's been quite a journey. Got all the people I could think of around the world, all the best people. That's kind of why it's slow. It's a slow process to make a film. But we do cover a lot. We actually are trying to break it up into either a 2-part film or a 6-part series. I think people like those series, on Netflix. It's like you can watch little bite-sized episodes. So that's probably going to happen. And I can take you through the film because it's a good way to frame our discussion here. And it starts with evolution. The first section is we're trying to answer the question, what should humans eat? Right. That's the main question we're asking in this documentary, right? Why is it so confusing? What should we eat? What's going on? There's all this other stuff around it, but the real core of the question is what should we eat? So we need to look back at our evolution. And I think all animals have a diet that they evolved on and that they thrive on. And this is not questioned in any other mammal or any other animal except for humans for some reason. Well, I guess because we're very adaptable and can we can survive off many different types of diets. So I guess it is confusing. But any other animal, we know that they have to eat a certain thing. Lions eat meat, rabbits eat greenery, whatever they eat.
Yeah.
Grass and carrots. So we don't dispute that. But with humans, because we're omnivorous and we can eat almost anything, it's really confusing. So, but we need to know, what are we adapted to eat? And I don't need to go into, every detail about it, but there are, I don't know, dozens of lines of evidence pointing to humans being very adapted to eating animal-based diets. Not that I'm not saying we're carnivores, and I'm not saying everyone has to do it, but our guts, our, a lot of part of our digestive systems are built around digesting meat. And there's been many changes that have happened over, millions of years that have led us to this.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really cool on your website here is just the articles and studies that you just litter the entire thing with. Is it shows you the misconceptions, what you've learned, and then you go down to the articles and studies and show all of that. And again, it's foodlies.org that you can go check it out yourself. But I think that aspect of things you've very clearly laid out, here's the research, folks. Here's exactly what is actually happening out there.
And there's so much more out there. I made that site 4 years ago and I actually didn't even update it. We're going to have hundreds of studies. So in
Oh,
the
wow.
film, we're actually going to have a little pop-up thing in the corner that has a number. And then all the people who are going to be really triggered by all this information can go look it up and see every study. And yes, we'll have a companion website with all these studies. So it's all backed by science. And, the vegan films, they're not, or they'll cherry pick some epidemiology.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have a degree in mechanical engineering. Did that kind of, help you in any way as you're going through this journey, or you feel like you completely left that?
Well, I think it really helped me to have this scientific background.
Mhm.
Also, it's like first principles. Like you got to find the root cause of the problem. Engineer doesn't care about, say, a vegan's feelings. You care
Yeah.
about, well, how is this building gonna stand or not, or is this jet engine gonna work? It's not like, oh man,
Mhm.
this pilot, the airplane pilot, I care about his feelings. Like,
No, you care about not killing people.
yeah, exactly. So I love that scientific approach. I feel like we've lost that in
Mhm.
2020 and 2021. Sadly, we've sort of lost the scientific method, and a lot more
Mhm.
things have been based on feelings
Yeah.
or other agendas or whatever.
Yeah, I just interviewed, well, the podcast came out this week with Jeffrey Smith about GMOs.
Mhm.
And one of the questions I asked him was like, a science objective? And he just kind of looked at me as if I was nuts.
Mm.
But what he was talking about is just how, and what he didn't mean by science is objective is the people doing science objective. Because he was talking about how often the studies for the safety of Roundup or the safety of all these of the GMOs has been completely, books been cooked to actually fit what the Monsanto and Bayer wanted.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, and I think what you're saying there too is, yes, you've got to follow that science, but we've also got to be careful of, who's skewing the science and what people are saying about the science.
Yeah. Well, they do science, they do studies on studies, and they've proven that they're biased, or you can just look at who's funding the studies.
Yeah.
And no, you can look at the insane marketing budgets and the insane lobbying budgets of the big food industries, pharmaceutical industries. It's very obvious that the information is being skewed and that there is a bias, and that it makes sense because one of my taglines is the profits in the processing. So
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of, farming, ranching podcast, people
Yeah.
know there's no big profit margins in selling whole foods.
A cucumber.
Yep.
We can sell a cucumber for $1, or we can sell a jar of pickles for $7. And that jar of pickles contains 1 to 2 cucumbers.
The profits in the processing. I mean, even in a good way. I mean, yes, I do sell meat products, and I can sell my biltong, which is kind of like a jerky, for more because we had to process it, but it's still a good quality product. But most processing is terrible. I love this guy, Dr. Bill Schindler. He's a paleoanthropologist, professor, and food scientist, and does all kinds of things. And he's saying for all of history, food processing increased nutrient density. Everything we did increased nutrient density until the modern age, and especially in the last 50 to 70 years, or whatever, 100 years. Now, lion's share of food processing decreases nutrient density almost to zero, right? I mean, if you're talking about just like eating a donut or any of these packaged foods they're just sugar, flour, and oil mixed in different combinations with fake flavorings, there's zero nutrition. So processing has gone from fermenting, soaking, sprouting, even just cooking is a form of processing to increase nutrient access and all this. And it went to the exact opposite. And that's where the money's made. And you can sell a box of cereal that costs the company, I don't know, like 3 cents, 6 cents.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's like $6 for this box of cereal.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the new science ideas and how we should be eating. Kind of obviously we're back to the basics, eating the, red meats, grass-fed. Talk to us a little bit more about kind of where the research is taking us.
Yeah, it's hard. A lot of the science is actually kind of buried. There's a whole book on this called The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. She's a really great. What's that?
Okay. Yep. I hadn't heard of that one.
Oh, amazing book. I think people, well, it's a great place to start. If you just want to know, it's not, promoting a certain diet, or it's just an amazing story. It took her almost 10 years to write. It's not a
Oh,
story.
wow.
It's
Yeah.
she's an investigative journalist by
Oh,
trade.
fascinating. Yep.
And it just explains everything that happened. Why did we get the food pyramid and the dietary guidelines? And it's insane. It's insane. She dug up studies that were buried for 16 years in some guy's basement, and it was proving that saturated fat wasn't bad for us. And what the person who dug it up asked the original scientist before he died, like, why did you not publish this? He said, well, we were just so disappointed with the results. Just imagine that. That's how science goes, right?
Yeah.
The bias is so deep that people just were like, wow, this doesn't show that, that saturated fat's bad. It must be wrong. We can't show this to anyone. We got to hide it. When instead of examining, or, the science is supposed to be about disproving your theories, really. Right? Disproving your theories. And then if it keeps holding up, or you keep trying to disprove it and it keeps holding up, well, then maybe that's your operating theory now. And we can say, this is our best theory, but we never say the science is settled. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of science just isn't done well anymore. So Big Fat Surprise goes through it all. And now, since writing the book, or in the past sort of decade, a lot of new science has come out, like the one that I mentioned, the Annals of Internal Medicine, exonerating red meat, or all kinds of different studies on low carb diets. I like low carb diet studies. There's this whole world, keto, low carb. It's great because it's just going against the mainstream. It's not like everyone has to do these type of diets, but they're just great because they're showing so much efficacy with this way of eating, showing reversal of type 2 diabetes, reversal of all these diseases. It's just a whole new field of science that is coming out and just showing the exact opposite of what we thought, right? We don't need the 6 to 11 servings of grain. All these diets usually are based on animal foods and animal fats and saturated fats. And so, there's actually some data tables there's over 100 studies of these kind of low carb diets, showing how effective they are and actually better than other types of diets.
Okay. So red meats, fresh vegetables, fermented foods. What other things should we be eating?
Well, any animal products, not just red meat. Yeah. So any animal foods, if they're well sourced, I'd especially be careful with chicken and pork for finding good sources of that. Eggs for sure. Eggs are superfood. Like I said earlier, I would definitely get the pastured eggs. I get corn-free, soy-free pastured eggs actually here in Austin from the farmer's market. Then I love the fermented foods. I just enjoy more like nutrient dense foods. I guess why I'm not in the low carb world per se, but I enjoy that because usually it means more nutrient density. If you have a lot of like carby, starchy, sugary foods, that usually means you're just getting a bunch of excess energy, really, or it's just you're diluting your food of nutrients with extra sugar and starch. So generally, it's better to find foods with high nutrient density, which are the animal foods, vegetables, and not even fruit. Fruits are fine. There's a lot of excess energy really in them. So it's like it's better if you're eating a lot of fruits if you're active.
Gotcha.
And,
all right. So having the apple and the first thing I wake up is okay because I'm going to go out and work all day long and burn that through.
Absolutely. Well, and it's in its whole form. You're eating the apple whole. You're not drinking the juice. Once you separate the food from its fiber, especially the plant foods, well, plant foods are really the only ones with fiber, but sugary like fruits, you change the whole game. Basically, you give your body just a big hit of blood sugar and subsequent insulin and all this stuff, and you don't want that. The simple way to put it. Yeah.
Hey, thriving farmers, where are you on your thriving farmer journey? So if you go to our website, growingfarmers.com, you can click on the assessment button, and that will take you to a form, ask you a few different questions, and that will help you figure out where you are on the 5-stage Thriving Farmer Journey. And what that does then is kicks you a customized PDF that gives you resources to know exactly what to focus on next in your business to go to the next level. So go to growingfarmers.com and click on the assessment.
All right, so let's talk about some of these mistakes made by the doctors, scientists, and others in the past. Kind of where did that start? Who invented the food pyramid?
Well, yeah, I mean, the film goes into all of this. There's kind of a well-known story, Ansel Keys. So I don't want to tell it for the millionth time if people have heard it, or if you haven't heard it, then you will in the film, or you can look it up. Basically, just did some bad science. 1950s, Eisenhower had a heart attack. We didn't know what was going on. There was one theory that it was saturated fat, and there was another theory that it was, sugar and refined grains and stuff. There's also, looking back, you could say, we're actually getting a bunch of trans fats and fake butters and margarine and seed oils and high omega-6, and a lot of people were smoking back then. So that was probably a big factor. But again, Ansel Keys was on the saturated fat as the culprit, and he did some really shaky epidemiology, looked at 22 countries. He chose the 7 that fit his theory, drew a line that made it seem like the more saturated fat you eat, the higher the heart disease. And then that kind of the rest is history. They had a McGovern report, and it kind of just became the dietary guidelines in 1980. And then that became the food pyramid, and that kind of just opened up the door to the processed food industry. And then that's kind of just been what's perpetuating it ever since. That's why they say the profits in the processing, they have all the money to perpetuate it, because obviously it's in their best interest. So they can do the lobbying, they can fund the studies, they can do all the marketing campaigns to keep this notion alive that, we should be eating all these processed carbs as the base of our diet.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people say, but, people are going to be truthful, and people are going to, look at the science and make the best decision. And we're like, well, there's still the alcohol, well, not necessarily the alcohol, but the tobacco industry out there who believes that smoking is good and stress relieving. I mean, I don't know how you can still perpetuate that line of work when there's literally, every study out there just shows you that smoking is not good for your health. So I think, you just got to get over that. There are people out there that care about profits over people.
Yep. And people should just know that. I'm waking up to that in every aspect of life. The government doesn't really care about you. Sad to say. Just know that. Just know they don't care about you. It's just, it's not how it works. They're trying to, it's almost like they're just trying to manage a preschool. It's just like, all right, there's these rugrats. We got to keep them in line and get on to the next day. I feel like that's kind of how the government operates these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, all right. So we've talked the science. Let's kind of move into your company, because you got a company called Nose to Tail, focused on regenerative agriculture to produce super high quality meats. Obviously, that was an outputting of the film and everything you're doing there, because you said, okay, so if I tell people about this, now I got to feed them.
Exactly. I was like, what's the best way to not go broke? And what do I believe in? And it's definitely regenerative ag. And we actually just relaunched on October 1st with a whole bunch of new ranchers in West Texas. And now all of them are regenerative. Before it was just, grass-fed, grass-finished. But now, this is something that, everyone should get behind, really. And I always say, you don't have to buy from me. I think you should find your local ranchers that are doing things well and get it from them, straight from them. But if you can't find that, or you don't want to, then you can just get it online from Nose to Tail.
That's going to be super helpful after everyone watches the film. So talk about the symbiosis between the animals and the earth, and what does regenerative mean to you?
Well, I actually just put out a video about this. You should check out the Food Lies YouTube channel. And I have my people how to properly raise beef. And we did this really nicely shot video, and they tell the whole story in just, 4.5 minutes. But actually they started back with Alan Savory and his courses. People probably know about him. He had a famous TED Talk and all that. And he did holistic management courses back in the late 80s. So my beef people took his classes, and really, it's about regenerating the land. You need diverse species growing in the, grasses and all these things to cover the ground. And grazing animals help accomplish that, right? It's all part of an ecosystem, and everything we're doing in this modern day is splitting up things and doing them for production yields and making them, I guess, more efficient, you could say, but not efficient if you're talking about quality nutrients, right? We're getting more calories, but not more nutrition. We're, splitting things up, doing monocrops, and then growing chickens and pigs in a warehouse. Like, it's insane. It's insane. They're supposed to be grown together, and the manure feeds the land, and there's a harmonious cycle. And yeah, I mean, that's what's going on. That's what's going on with, I mean, I guess you've talked to, all kinds of different farmers and ranchers, I'm sure, but especially in West Texas, especially where it's drier and the land needs regenerating because it's been basically just stripped of all nutrients, but by not having animals on it, or by doing, the wrong kind of intensive monocrops, it needs to be fixed. And doing the holistic management, rotating the animals, just using these regenerative methods can do that.
So you have meats on there, you got some seasoning blends, you're also doing, as you said, that type of jerky, and then some body care and stuff like that. Where do you see that going?
Well, yeah, the body care, especially, we're doing a beef tallow body care. People love it. It's really, well, I'm just trying to get it out there to more people and just get natural products to people. I mean, I guess I'd love to expand, but I'd also just love for more people to start doing this and start waking up to, stop using chemical soaps from some big manufacturer. Like it's just about going back to nature, really. Those are the products I'm trying to do, is just, what did we do back in the day? Right? It's like, well, we made soap out of lye, or if we had like ash from a fire and some fat, and you mix them together and it saponifies, and you get soap. So let's do that. I mean, we're even trying to go beyond that, even beyond nose to tail. We're trying to actually create a whole decentralized food network and even communities. This is our newest thing that we kind of just started talking about today. And I actually do have a site, sovereignhumans.org.
Okay.
Sovereignhumans.org it's actually not even up. Maybe before this goes live, we'll get it up. But really, that's my ultimate goal. I don't want to, just talk about my products. I'd rather just start a movement of people connecting with nature, connecting with being a human again, and going outside the system and creating decentralized food networks to feed their own community. And I think we're going to try to do that as the first node in this network outside of Austin. And that's kind of what we're working on.
Very cool. Now let's talk about the name, nose to tail. What does that mean? What's the benefits for using the whole animal?
Yeah, well, I'm glad this term is going around. People are understanding nose to tail more. It's what we've always done. I visited Africa recently, spent time with the Hadza and the Maasai and Pygmies and some other tribes. And this is how they eat. They use the whole animal, right? This is what we've always done. Native Americans and bison, and using every part of the animal, right? From the hide and the bones and everything. So, I mean, yes, we do sell that in nose tail. We eat bone broth and all the organs and all that type of stuff. But then we're also just encouraging that lifestyle in general, where just embrace all the aspects of the animal. Actually, the animals, I think it's about 400 different products are made from, say, a cow. And no one really knows this. And what the vegans don't really understand is what would happen if we didn't use all these products from animals. We'd have to make them synthetically with fossil fuels and with plastics and with all these other things. Like, no one has accounted for this when they're doing the equations of, the impact of animals on the land, or, carbon equivalents or methane or any of that. So I think it's just important to realize how useful animal products are, and more than just providing great nutrition. And even another thing is food waste. There's way more. It's like 70% of the food waste is from plant foods. And so people don't waste animal foods. They understand they're valuable and they use them. So that's just kind of one more knock against this idea that animals are sort of harmful to the environment.
All right. So when is the film coming out?
Well, we work on it daily. I will have to get back to it as soon as I get off the line. We next year. I mean, hopefully earlier than later, but yeah, trying to get it out on Netflix. We have a distribution company that's interested in getting it on Netflix and everywhere around the world.
Now, tell us a little bit about the health coach aspect. So you just work one-on-one with folks there to kind of educate them about what's right for them?
Yeah. I don't have a lot of time for that, but I do take on people here and there or work with Dr. Gary. He's in LA. So if anyone's in LA, they can look up Evolve Healthcare. But I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot by working with patients directly because, man, everyone's different, right? There's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different preferences, lifestyles, religious beliefs, cultural, family. And so, you know, it's not like kind of one size fits all solution. So it's been really good to learn about how people work, what works for them. But I mean, yes, you can find a lot of consistencies, which is interesting.
Gotcha. Yeah. So then you work one-on-one. How long does a typical, how long do you work with someone for? A couple months or?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of just we do have a program at Sapien.org, and, we have a 12-week program, and you can work with one of our other health coaches, but I kind of just try to come in and work with people in just like an hour consult, and then we can try to get blood work done, and then maybe it's just more of just once a month checking in, because I find it pretty effective to just give people some of these interventions, and it just seems to work. Right? They're not simple. It's not like I'm telling them they have to eat some low calorie salads, and just be starving all the time. It's like, hey, let's do something you can sustain. Let's do something that you enjoy, like eating foods you enjoy and keep you full.
Yeah. Get people back to the basics. All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you sharing about the film, sharing about the food. And okay, so as a farmer who is, high energy, needs a lot of calories a day, what kind of go-to food should I be snacking on during the day? Or should I not be snacking?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a whole thing there, but intermittent fasting, people have probably heard about. And I mean, I think you got to figure it out. I don't think it's good to eat all the time, but I don't think everyone needs to do, extended fasting. But I think we had it. We had it figured out back in the day. Your great grandparents, what were they doing? I would do that. They were out probably farming and ranching.
Yeah.
Right? So what were they doing? They ate a breakfast. They had a good hearty lunch and good hearty dinner. Maybe they didn't even, I know some ranchers and farmers that would just eat 2 big meals a day. So, and what they're doing, they're eating whole foods, they're eating animal foods, and they were fine. So if you stick to whole foods, you stick to 2 to 3 hearty meals, embrace animal foods, animal fats, I think you're good. You can't go wrong.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brian.
All right. Well, thank you.
Hey, Thriving Farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.